Venezuela's interim leader is calling for collaboration with Washington as she holds her first cabinet meeting after being ordered by the High Court to assume the role. And this after the abduction of Nicolas Maduro by the United States. Donald Trump had warned Delcy Rodriguez that she would have to do exactly what the US wanted, and has repeated that the US will run Venezuela in the short term, something that his Secretary of State has stepped back from slightly, focusing more on Venezuela's oil reserves. Well, let's cross now live to Fraser Jackson in Washington. Fraser, for Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez holding the first cabinet meeting. Trump had given her quite stark warnings. To what extent do you think the US is going to try to run Venezuela, put pressure on the leaders there, or how much is it all about simple access to oil?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a split narrative coming out of DC now. Donald Trump, of course, said that he was going to run Venezuela, but Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, spent the best part of Sunday trying to kind of tone down that narrative, trying to strike a somewhat more diplomatic tone, but Donald Trump continuing that narrative that the US is in control of Venezuela. But in reality, what he means is that the US is trying to influence the interim President Rodriguez to align with US interests and demands. Now, at first, Rodriguez was, of course, hostile in her tone to the US, calling the US operation a barbarity, accusing the US of an oil grab. But then Donald Trump publicly threatened her on Sunday morning, telling The Atlantic that if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, bigger than what Maduro paid. So then on Sunday night, we get the statement from Rodriguez, which effectively softens the tone from the interim president of Venezuela. In her statement, she said, "We extended an invitation to the US government to work together on a cooperative agenda oriented towards shared development within the framework of international law and to strengthen lasting community coexistence." So that means that she could well then give Donald Trump what he wants, which is access for US companies to the Venezuelan oil industry, but also other industries, which we heard on the plane back from Mar-a-Lago back to DC. Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, said that they're also looking into the steel and aluminium industries as well as critical minerals as well. So Donald Trump trying to extend US interests in Venezuela, and it's believed, mainly because he said it came from Donald Trump's mouth itself, that after that is when we will get new elections being pushed for in Venezuela. So new elections not until after the oil industry has been sorted out. But of course, that in itself is a difficult task. But that looks like we still don't know. So it could be some while off yet.
Meanwhile, Fraser, Maduro and his wife expected in court in the United States this Monday.
Yeah, they'll be heading to the Southern District of New York in Manhattan, where they will be arraigned with those charges read out for them. They then will have an opportunity to hear what the case against them is. It's expected that they are going to plead not guilty to all of the charges of the narco-terrorism charges, as well as cocaine conspiracy and weapons charges as well. But until the trial goes ahead, which could be quite some time from now, months, if not even into next year, then the Maduros are likely to be held in that detention facility in Brooklyn without bail. That is, of course, a very high-profile prison where high-profile prisoners like Luigi Mangione, P. Diddy are inside that facility as well. But bail unlikely in this case, considering the high-profile nature of the case. But like I said, that could take some time to come to trial. And it's looking like it could be a long stint in prison for Maduro, because if he is found guilty of these charges, the mandatory minimums for these charges are 30 years. So for a man in his 60s, that would mean he'd be well into his 90s if indeed he did get found guilty on these charges. So it looks like Maduro could well find himself behind bars in the United States for the rest of his life.
And Fraser, you mentioned there Trump was indeed speaking to reporters on Air Force One. He also made noises about Colombia during that trip, similar to what he had said before the US military carried out that operation in Venezuela. He said that a US operation in Colombia sounded good. I mean, could we see things? He also has re-threatened Greenland again over the weekend. I mean, could we see this go even further?
Well, I think Donald Trump is, of course, the king of bluster. But if you think back to November when that national security strategy was released, it made very obvious that the United States is reorienting its focus away from wars in Europe and potentially even moving away from Taiwan and focusing on its own backyard. Donald Trump wants to focus on Latin America, on the Americas, and sort out what he calls the narco-terrorist state in this part of the world. And he wants to sort out any country that he believes does not have American interests at its heart. So that means he is now focusing on countries like Colombia. He's already threatened the president there, Petro, which of course it should be noted that the vast majority of cocaine coming into the United States comes from Colombia. He's also focusing, though, on Mexico, which, of course, the cartels there as well are responsible for the influx of fentanyl, which has killed thousands and thousands of Americans every year. He's also focusing his attention on there. But for now, he doesn't seem to be about to go in to Mexico. It seems that Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, would manage to talk him down quite a few times off that ledge. And the other country that he's focusing on at the moment as well is Cuba. He said that Cuba could fall any day now. He kind of stopped short, though, of saying that there was going to be US intervention in Cuba, but he's also raising the stakes in Cuba as well. So Donald Trump's MO that we saw in Venezuela could well be replicated across other parts of Latin America, but really keeping countries on notice here and saying that if countries don't fall in line to the US way of doing things and the US viewpoint, then they could end up going the same way as Nicolas Maduro.
Fraser Jackson in Washington, thank you very much indeed.